Stuart, real
Yes.
talk. Uh, I think it's worth bearing. One of the things that I love, the feedback that we get about our podcast and like, just hanging out with us is our relationship, right? And how I love how our love for each other is obvious and it's demonstrated and people can see it. Like that to me, like I desire that in all my relationships. I really want people to see when they look at me, I want them to see a couple things. I want them to see that I love Jesus. Like I want that to be so obvious in everything I do. I fail often. I want them to see that I love my wife. I fail often, but I want people to see that. I want people to see that I absolutely adore and cherish and love my children. I want them to see that. And I want people to see that I love my friends like my family. It's getting me a little emotional. Wow.
What about a crooked nose? Do you want them to see your
Yeah,
crooked
I want
nose?
them to see that because it builds character. And I
Okay.
want them to see that it builds character. Um, but I truly desire these things and I very often, every single day, not very often, always fall short of what it is that I want in my life. And it's not for others to see. Like that's not the point. Hopefully that's not, lost on our listeners. The point is not that you look at me and look at my Facebook Insta life and this guy love. No, I want you to see it because it radiates from my being that I have this love for these people. That being said, it's not always that way, right? And you and I, while we do have this amazing relationship, there's a lot of frustrations. There's a lot of things that we have tied together. Our businesses, our personalities are vastly different. And your jealousy for my looks is like apparent. It's ever present.
Yeah,
And
I really want a crooked nose.
it's exhausting. It's exhausting how much you want to look like me.
Yeah.
That being said, I think it's I think it's important to highlight that one, relationships aren't always what they appear. Two, that there oftentimes is and should be conflict and tension in some of our best relationships. And you should really embrace that, live in that, and let that help you grow. And I think it's just interesting because we're kind of going through a phase right now or we were going through a little frustration
A
recently
little
with each
tiff.
other, a little tiff, a little tiffy tiff. But I think it's good to acknowledge, right? I think it's good because most importantly, what do you do about it, right? What do you do about it? And this is applicable to your marriage, your friendships, your relationships with your kids. It's applicable to everything, and what you do about it is critical. If you don't believe me, go read The Good Life. There's an entire section about, you know, it talks about relationships being paramount to health and longevity, but it also highlights within the relationships how we can be and show up. And it points to attention being huge, right? Presence, attention, something we talk about a lot. But it also talks about this idea of being vulnerable, open, expressing, not just seeking peace in relationships, but seeking depth. So there's a lot there.
Yeah. When you ask the question, what do we do about it? My normal tendency is to just walk away from it, hide from it, not bring it up, not talk about it.
Does that make you feel better? How does that make you feel on the inside? Is it good? Does it work?
No, it's no, it just, I ruminate on it for a long time, and it just makes me more frustrated and angry. But the podcast before we recorded about self-awareness and kind of knowing who we are. And I've realized that about myself. And I have been intentional about trying to step out of that and just honestly be vulnerable, be uncomfortable, and make an effort to bring it up. And I don't know if you noticed it, but in our conversation, like, it's like, hey man, like, let's talk about this. Like, there's something going on here. There's some frustrations between the two of us that's been happening. I did shut down a little bit, right? Like, I shut down over the weekend and, have conversations and, whatever. But like, eventually, like, we have to talk about this stuff. we have to bring it up. We have to get uncomfortable. We have to be vulnerable, whether it's your closest relationship in your marriage, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your best friend, whether it's with your business partners, and just bringing it up. And like after that conversation, yeah, it wasn't fun, but I feel better about it now that it's done. And now that we've kind of just laid out like, hey, what are our thoughts? What are our frustrations? Being real, and just going through that. I feel like we're in a better place, right? And that angst, that internal frustration is now gone, or maybe for a short period. There'll probably be some more frustrations that come.
Yeah, I
But
mean, but there should be, right? Our
yeah,
our expectation, and this is also goes to like faith. Like God never promised an easy life. He never
no,
promised a life that didn't have struggle. These are not things that the Bible, and anybody who interprets the Bible that way, I think there's a name for some of those things, right? There's a name for those interpretations, and I think they're false and they're lies, right? I mean, if Jesus is the standard and the expectation and the person that we follow, like look at his life, like look how easy the end of his life was. I mean, it wasn't, right? It was extremely difficult, and there's a lot of rejection and pain and all that. And you look at, one thing I've been diving into is the 12 apostles. Dude, if you really take some time and look at who these dudes were, like they literally
bunch of misfits.
before Jesus though, where they came from literally hated each other.
Yeah,
You had Matthew, a tax
tax
collector
collector.
for the Roman Empire, right? Or he's collecting taxes. He's a government man. And then you have a zealot who is literally a man who is dedicated to extremism, Jewish extremism, and like killing and
Killing
whatever,
Roman
like
guards.
to fight the exactly what Matthew stands for.
Yeah,
You have these two dudes coming into the same room, and like you're like,
and
oh,
Jesus sends them out together to go preach
to
his
go hang
word.
out, to go hang out. So if you think it was butterflies and rainbows and flowers, like I guarantee you they had significant relational, like it is impossible to not have, disagreements and, around the campfire, right? But they were able to overcome them and do something that was vastly has changed everything. And so I simply highlight that to say that we're not, Jesus didn't, and he didn't make a mistake bringing those guys together, right? That wasn't a mistake on his part. That was very intentional. And where they ended up was different than where they started. And through that, there was, strife and disagreement. Think of your marriage. Like if your marriage is super easy and you guys are just kind of floating through, like you should assess that. If there's no disagreement or no discussion or no discourse, like you should assess that. And if your friendships are like that's cool, but maybe, just maybe, there's a lack of some depth, you know. And I'm not saying you're not good friends unless you fight all the time. That's not what I'm saying. But if there's never any disagreement, any kind of growth or any kind of friction, iron sharpens iron, right? Iron doesn't sharpen iron because it just slips past each other, dude. That's a grinding. That's a grinding and a refining and an effort to make those blades sharper. And so just embrace that, right? And don't run from it. And sometimes if you're me on this side of that equation, not everything has to be addressed in conflict, right? Like I could stand to maybe step back from some things and shut my mouth and listen.
Yeah,
Like I'm
shut your mouth,
self-aware of
man.
that. Yeah, shut your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like I should do that. I should step back and listen to what it is that is bothering you and then own my part of that. Just like you need to step out of your comfort and start talking and move forward. And then we can meet somewhere in the middle. And it's kumbaya, man. Then it's all rainbows and snowflakes and candy canes or whatever.
Unicorns.
Until the next time. Until the next time we do it again. But I feel like our relationship is this continuous stepping stone of getting better and better because we're not stepping away from it, which a lot of people do. This is too hard. This relationship is just, ugh. I'm
Yeah,
just
then
gonna
they
go
just
find another
quit.
friend that I could be super shallow with.
Or they quit and they get divorced, right? In a marriage.
Right. Right. And my wife and I were talking about this yesterday, not divorce, but we were just talking about the um how when the relationship starts over, there's all this passion. What we were talking about specifically is how do we go back and think about the things? Because she specifically told the story about me. and our first date, I'll be completely honest. One of our first dates, I opened the door, she got in, I closed it, walked around for the car, and I let one rip, right? And I was like, oh man. And when I got in the car, she's laughing. I didn't know she heard it. And she's like, I'm like, oh, did you? There was a duck in front of the car. I totally stepped on this duck. Did you hear it? And it's yesterday. She's like, now when you make the duck joke, it drives me nuts. She's like, but I'm thinking back to this dating, and it was so funny. And so she was bringing that up, very self-aware, and we are just talking about second marriages and how they typically fail at a higher, not typically, data supports they fail at a higher rate than first marriages.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't get better by just cutting off and trying to find something different. That's not the way you get to growth. It's commitment. You embrace that love, you embrace the suck, you grow together, and that then gets better than the alternative. And so do that, right? Do that and seek that out.
I like it. I still love you. I get frustrated with you, but I still love you.
Yeah. And I love you. And I would appreciate if you stopped stepping on so many ducks in your office. That's what I would appreciate. I would appreciate that part too.
I thought that you liked that about our relationship.
Yeah. As long as it stays in your office, that's fine. Go light a candle. I love you.
All right. Go do something about it. Go don't quit. It's all
Don't
good.
quit. Because you know people that quit, what they call them.
Quitters?
Yeah, I don't know. That's all I had. Quitters.
I'm ending this conversation because it's
See ya.
bye.